Good evening, everyone. I call to order the regular council meeting of the Victoria City Council for Monday, July 27th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Without objection, council, I want to go ahead and waive the reading of the process to call in. I think people have heard it enough. Any objections? Okay. With that, the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we've got some announcements. Last month, we kicked off our 2021 budget discussion. Our next budget discussion will be August 24th at 5 p.m. where the council, wait a second. Yeah, August 24th at 5 p.m. where the council will discuss and provide direction to staff on the preparation of the maximum tax levy for 2021. The council will adopt the maximum tax levy at the regular meeting on September 14th at 6:30 p.m. Budget workshops and meetings are held at City Hall in the council chambers. The public is invited to attend and provide input. Additionally, there's going to be a council meeting next week, a week from tonight, on August 3rd at 6:30 p.m. Instead of August 10th, so it's a week early. Also, a council workshop is scheduled for September 14th at 5 p.m. to discuss the long-term plan for utility underground and the creation of a potential parking site for downtown at Salter Park. All meetings of the City Council take place in City Hall and the council chambers unless otherwise noted. The public's invited to attend. Due to the COVID-19, city facilities are now open, but we are temporarily limiting capacity to ensure social distancing. Additionally, all visitors to City Hall are required to wear masks per the governor's executive order. While we look forward to seeing everyone at our meetings, we encourage anyone wanting to attend a council meeting or workshop in person to register in advance with the city clerk. In other announcements, the filing dates for open city council seats opens tomorrow, July 28th, and runs through August 11th. Please contact our city clerk or city manager with any questions about filing or visit the city's website for more information. Next, the Victoria Farmers Market is in full swing with additional vendors added. Victoria's Market runs every Thursday from 3 to 7 p.m. Through October 8th in the parking lot of Enke Brewing. We invite everyone to follow us on Facebook by searching Victoria's Farmers Market. I drove by the other day, the place was packed. The next City Council meeting will be held again on August 3rd at 6:30. There will not be a council meeting on August 10th. Dana, is there anything else?
Nothing further, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. With that, we do have at least one open forum item. And with that, Mary Joseph.
Hi.
Hi. If you would, please say your name and address for the record.
My name is Mary Joseph. I live at 1762 Greencrest Drive in Victoria. And I am the president of the Greencrest Townhome Association. And so what I am here for today is I sent you all a letter via email, you're probably sick of me, and also delivered a copy. So we had the pleasure of meeting with Kara and her team last week to review the city's budget and also some of the plans that are in place for the trails and their priority. Even though we were really excited to hear what the system was, we still have two goals which we're really going to stick to, and that's the safety of Greencrest. We would really appreciate if you could review the current year budget and find funds to kind of finish off that south side from Greencrest to 11 so that we have a walking path that's a little safer than it is today. And then the second one is to prioritize both the trail on the south and the north side of 43 for us to go to 11. And that, in effect, is what we want. We're trusting that you will embrace our concerns about safety and help us to make this happen. I did get the signatures of all of our residents so that we would show how serious we are. But we expect that you already know that and appreciate our position. So I thank you very much for listening, and I hope I get your support.
Yep, thank you. Council, any quick questions?
Questions?
No?
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mary. Is there anybody else that wants to speak in the open forum? Going once, twice, sold. Okay, council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda, please?
Make a motion to adopt the final agenda.
Thank you. Second, please.
Second motion.
Thank you. Discussion on the agenda? Any changes, council, staff? No? That's next. Hold on, I got you. The hearing no changes, no further discussion. All in favor of adopting the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Next, consent agenda. Judy wants to pull off 5.6, so we're going to pull 5.6. Council, staff, members of the public, anybody else want to pull any other items from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item 5.6, please?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 5.6.
Second. Thank you. I've got a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, the modified consent agenda is adopted. We'll now immediately pick up item 5.6, approve Marsh Lake Road pay request number 1. Judy, the floor is yours.
Okay, I just wanted to bring up the fact that this is the beginning of payments for Marsh Lake Road, and we're moving right along to get it finished. I just was wanting to see if we could get an update on the joint powers agreement and if we've learned anything else from the Green Acre.
Who's that? Is that a question for staff?
Yes.
Dana?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Black, I can at least begin to answer that, and perhaps our city engineer will jump in as well. But I believe, Councilmember Black, you're asking about, previously the council had directed staff to reach out to the township and ask them what their appetite would be for assessing, if we decided to proceed with special assessments for the Marsh Lake Road project, assessing the property owners on their side of the road, which falls into the township. The township did reach out, their attorney reached out to our attorney, and essentially said that they were not interested in considering special assessments for that project at this time, and there was no need for further discussion on that topic. I think that's about sums it up. Unless our city attorney has anything to add. So, and then as far as the Green Acres, that was another topic of discussion that came out of the last council, the council discussion on Marsh Lake Road. There, we know we do have at least one property that is in the Green Acres program. That program set by statute and administered by the county. And there was a question about different interpretations on how that program works. So if we are going to bond for Marsh Lake Road, and the question was, when that bond matures, so for purposes of this discussion, 15 years from now, and a parcel is still in Green Acres, is that payment due when the bond matures? I think our interpretation was, yes, that payment is due within 90 days, and upon when the bonds mature with interest. The county's interpretation is different than what we had stated during our last discussion. And the county, being the administrators of the project, said that, or of the statute and of the program, said that their interpretation is different than the city's. And they interpret the statute and the program as long as that property is in the Green Acres program, doesn't matter if those bonds have matured, that payment would not be due until such time that parcel comes out of Green Acres.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on 5.6? If not, council, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda item 5.6, please?
Make a motion to approve 5.6.
Thank you. Second, please. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, next. Regular agenda, item 6.1, accept a 3-year proposal for independent audit services and approve the 2020 audit engagement letter with, boy, I'm not going to pronounce this right. So we'll just move on. Dana, is this you or Trish is this you? Trish, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Earlier this year, Council approved a policy for professional services contracts, which requires solicitation for professional services every 5 years. So city staff published a request for proposals earlier this year for professional auditing services for fiscal years ending 2020 through 2022. The city received 6 proposals from well-qualified firms and conducted in-person interviews with 3 firms. Of those 3 firms, staff is recommending the council accept a 3-year proposal for independent audit services and approve the 2020 audit engagement letter with Malloy, Montag, Karnowski, and Radosevich and Company, MMKR.
It wasn't just me.
Right, for the audit of the December 31st, 2020 comprehensive annual financial report and the single audit of federal awards if it deems necessary. The 2020 budget includes funding for the 2020 audit, and MMKR's fees would be $29,425 for that year. Representing the firm this evening are Jackie Hugel and Jim Eichten. They are here to answer any questions that you might have about their firm, and would just like to introduce themselves to you. So, Jim, Jackie?
Perfect, thank you. Would you guys like to come on up? Please, for the record, go ahead and name and positions.
I'm Jackie Hegel. I'm a partner with MMKR. I've been working there for 17 years, all in the governmental accounting sector.
And I'm Jim Eichten. I'm the managing partner with MMKR, and yes, you can just use MMKR from now. Yeah, you took that trauma on you after that. But I've been with the firm for 31 years, working solely in governmental accounting. So this is I always say this is my 31st go around of doing this, and we're excited to, with your acceptance this evening, audit the city this coming winter, I guess.
Oh, super. So, council, let me open up the floor. Anybody have any questions or comments?
No?
No?
Just want to say welcome, and we're looking forward to your reports.
Super. Thank you. Yes. Welcome aboard. Of course, we haven't approved it yet, so we still have to do that, right? So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Thanks for coming in tonight, folks. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, can we get the,
Nothing up here on this one.
Right.
I can make a motion that we accept the 3-year proposal for independent audit services and approve the 2020 audit engagement letter with MMKR for the audit of December 31st, 2020, comprehensive annual financial report, and single audit of federal awards.
thank you. Can I get a second, please?
Second motion.
Discussion? Any further discussion, council? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now you guys can pat yourself on the back.
Mayor,
Dana?
members of the council, I just want to note one separate thing, because the federal award for that triggers a single audit is $750,000, and as you know, as we just talked about in our budget workshop, what we're getting through the federal government for CARES Act funding is very close to that, $747,000 and some odd dollars. We also have other grants that originate in the federal realm, and so that would be added to that. So it's very possible that we'll have the single audit. We may be, if we hit that trigger, we may be coming back with an amended engagement letter for those services, just as an FYI.
All right, thank you, Dana. Next item, 6.2, Downtown West Development Update and 2020 Livable Communities Demonstration Account Grant. Marty, take it away.
All right.
Up.
Sorry.
Yeah, you want to go first?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you. If I could just address the council and staff just for a minute. It's been a while since we've looked at the 13 and a half acres, and just in the interest of transparency, I just wanted to make everyone aware that I do live on Steiger Lake Lane in between City Hall and Downtown West. And tonight we're going to be talking mostly about a deeper dive into infrastructure and some of the costs associated with that. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the costs on Steiger Lake Lane, which front my house. The 13 and a half acres we've owned for over 12 years. We purchased it for the intent to develop it into this type of a use, a mixed-use development. I've always been in support of that type of development. Even though we're actually talking numbers here, we're looking at infrastructure and even some costs along Steiger Lake Lane, I still feel that I don't necessarily have a conflict of interest with that. I don't presume to speak for anybody else, but I do want to open it up for any questions or concerns from mayor and council, any of the staff, if they have any comments or thoughts on that, certainly would welcome that.
Okay, thank you. Bob, any legal opinion here?
You know, Mayor and Council, I have to confess, I remember the abutting and adjacent discussion that we spent a fair amount of time on, council member. I don't remember, though, sort of conclusively conveying that I thought you had a conflict. I thought there was an issue that you should disclose, and you've done that again. And so, no, I don't think I have anything to say. Well, just to remind new council members, what I've said before is that to the extent, as an example, to the extent you live in a neighborhood that's going to be specially assessed as part of a city road improvement project, that's not a conflict of interest. The fact of the matter is the city has a policy to upgrade its roads, and you're no differently situated than anybody else in the city. Is Councilmember Gregory differently situated given the development of this area? I guess various people could disagree about that, but I didn't see, tell me if I'm wrong, Councilmember, but I don't recall saying definitively the facts were so different for you than anybody else in the city that you would be conflicted. I mean, the fact of the matter is redevelopment of a big chunk of your neighboring downtown area will impact positively, one would think, everyone in the city. And so I think that was basically the discussion we had back in those
Right, and as far as I'm concerned, Councilmember Gregory did the right thing by just letting the public know again that he's got the adjacent property. So, Council, any questions, comments?
No, I don't have any.
Nope. Okay, with that, let's go back to Marty.
All right.
Take her away.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Marty Dahl, Community and Economic Development Director for the city. There's several pieces related to this item tonight, including requested action on a Livable Communities Demonstration Account grant application. But first, before we get into all of that, I just wanted to set the stage with what we'll be going over this evening. So I'm going to provide just a very brief background as to how we got to where we are today. I will then turn things over to Will Matzek from Kimley Horn and his team, who will be going over the recently completed feasibility study for this area. And then at the end, City Manager Hardy will conclude with some information about that LCDA grant application. So just to begin, as you know, as we mentioned, the city has owned that 13.5 acre parcel of land just to the northwest of our existing downtown and adjacent to the 3,700 acre Three Rivers Carver Park Reserve for approximately 14-ish years now. Council and staff have been seeking to develop that property known as Downtown West in a manner that is consistent with the council's vision as an extension of that existing downtown area for several years. So in 2016, the city council adopted a downtown master plan, and that plan guided the site as a mixed-use residential neighborhood with commercial, office, and residential uses. Then in late 2018, DJR Architects built upon that master plan and presented a master plan concept that was specific to this 13.5 acre site. And for the last 2 years, that concept has provided the framework for discussing development of this parcel. In January of this year, the council authorized Kimley Horn to conduct an infrastructure feasibility study, and that study is meant to be a detailed dive into the feasibility, costs, and phasing that would be associated with actually getting this site ready for development. Taking a real-world look at this site was a very important next step, as we do currently have a motivated and willing partner that's interested in kicking off the first phase of that development in this parcel. So with that bit of background, I will now turn it over to Will Matzek from Kimley Horn and his team to go over the study findings. Yeah.
Hi, welcome. Name and position for the record, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Will Matzek. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. I'm here with Eric Fosmo, who will be joining me shortly during the presentation. So thank you, Mayor, members of council, for having us here this evening. So we were engaged, as Marty mentioned, to take a look at the feasibility of how could we help spur development on this site and look at it in a manner that could be phased, and look at just evaluating the infrastructure and look at the best way that we could to help you all move forward with this unique piece of property. It's a great location from the standpoint it's on the park reserve, but there's been challenges over the years with topography and infrastructure, and so we kept those things in mind as we were starting our work and really a lot of the work that's gone in to date. So y'all are likely familiar with the location, downtown west. I'll move on to the next slide if I can. There we go. So what we, as we were creating the current site plan that you see in front of you, it's similar in many respects to some of the things that you've seen before. However, there are a few differences that just want to make everybody aware of. The first was that we're wanting to build upon Steiger Lake Lane, as we've talked about, and have that route through the site. That's somewhat similar to what you've all seen before, but where we've located it is near the ridge line of the high point of the property. So there's about 30 feet of elevation differential on the site. And so we've tried to locate it in a way that works for buildings on both sides of the street, thinking that this will be a Main Street opportunity that we want to help create a very exciting development. The other piece of it is that being that we're by the park reserve, really a nice entrance to that, and a central green that you'll notice that is located between buildings 4 and 5. And that could really be a nice public space. And one of the things that we also looked at was how do we draw people into the site with an amenity while also being functional. So as you would be driving into the site from Arboretum, we actually have a stormwater management feature, but it's really meant to both treat stormwater but also be an amenity. So that will provide a sense of place. So those were some of the things we looked at as we were developing the current plan in front of you. The site data summary here, it really provides a high-level overview of some of the information that's on the site. As we mentioned earlier, we're still in the concept stages, so some of the things that this plan was built upon will likely be different as we all proceed. The first phase of the project that likely would occur would be in Building 5, so in the southeast corner of the site. And so really we're looking at that portion of the project being the southeast corner of the site as kind of the catalyst to kick off the project. And that project ultimately, would be about 125 units of market rate housing, but with that comes some infrastructure. And so that we'd look at that for a portion of the infrastructure around that site. And one of the things that we'll get to as we move on through the presentation is we could do just the infrastructure around that portion, or also look a little bit more and do some of the green space and some of the stormwater amenities that could really provide a sense of place and help spur additional development. The central feature that I mentioned, now this is something that the stormwater treatment area that you would see very visible as you'd enter the site from Arboretum, is really a tiered stormwater treatment approach where you'd have multiple cells treating stormwater, and when it rains, each one would have an overflow that would go into another. So they would appear to be, small waterfalls, if you will. So you get an opportunity in many respects to have an educational sense to it that, while it's raining, I can actually see how the stormwater is working, while also providing a very attractive entrance that meets the watershed requirements, but you get a really nice sense of place and a connection to nature, of which ties you back into the park reserve. I'll have my partner Eric Fosmo come up, and he'll walk everybody through some of the particulars of our feasibility report that we completed that ultimately leads to some of the cost aspects of it, and he'll take you through that portion next. So thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. As Will said, I'm going to go through more of the higher level on the engineering side, just to provide a quick summary of the design details and then talk a little bit about phasing and costs. So from a roadway, and sorry, catch my breath without the mask, it's actually feels good. From a roadway and drainage perspective, as you can see on the site layout, Steiger Lake Lane, as Will mentioned, is the central drive that kind of follows the ridge line through the site. A couple things to notice with the drainage. I mean, generally the drainage is focused around the stormwater feature at the southeast corner of the site. As the development will be phased, as you can see on the kind of a building in the area of building 8, building 6 on the south side there. The site will be graded as you see in the grading plan. There's essentially what amounts to a temporary pond. So with building 6 kind of being what would likely be the last phase of development, at that point in time, that facility could be put underground. So that's kind of what you're seeing on that map. But generally, everything's focused to flow southeast towards the stormwater feature, and then eventually outlets to the west. One thing to note on the plan, I mean, we are looking at this from a contiguous development, so access is provided to the existing sites that are at the corner of Arboretum and Victoria Drive to provide some continuity there. From a grading plan perspective, as Will mentioned, the site is relatively challenging for the size of the site with the amount of grade change that's out there. So as you see from the grading plan, we've laid that out to generally have Steiger Lake Lane follow that ridge line, with most of the drainage and grading being maintained back towards Arboretum. But just a general overview of the grading, it would require about 70,000 yards of excavation. So the site is pretty well balanced, although there would be some off-site hauling needed to haul out material just to get the grading plan to work with the site plan as it sits. From a public utility perspective, again, kind of a little bit of a broken record on the way the fall on the site is, but the sanitary sewer is proposed to flow south and east throughout the development towards the existing Steiger Lake Lane connection. Generally, that's where the capacity in the existing system is. As we get further along in this project, there is a potential for some of that to flow west, but as we understand, there could be some capacity issues to the west, so that would have to be further evaluated as the project moves forward.
How would it go west, underground piping, or?
We're talking sanitary sewer. My understanding is there's sewer on Victoria Drive in that area, or towards Victoria Drive, that it potentially could connect to, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's some sizing concerns there. So as we have it laid out, where we understand there is the most capacity is to have the entire site flow to the southeast towards the southeast corner of the site. From a water main perspective, the water main is shown down Steiger Lake Lane, and then looped down the east side of Victoria Drive to provide a looped water main system for the site. From a phasing perspective, I know this is mentioned in the staff report as well. So as we talk about the phasing of the project, as it's shown on your screen, the phase 1 minimum is essentially the minimum amount of public infrastructure necessary to support the proposed development, or this first phase of development that's under consideration. The phase 1 max is essentially the additional public infrastructure work to construct the central green and the stormwater feature mentioned. The benefit behind, as the staff report lays out, and as we'll show here as we get to costs and the grant funding, the benefit behind the kind of going from the phase 1 minimum to the phase 1 max is providing that public amenity that allows future development and potentially developers for the rest of the phases to see the city's commitment, see what it's going to look like, and get a sense for what the true full development is going to look like. Beyond the phase 1, what we have laid out in green is the remaining phase 2. The intention would be the remaining site would need to be graded as part of phase 2, with the buildings on the north side of Steiger Lake Lane as part of phase 2, and then the future development kind of in the gray shaded area. There's many iterations of that phasing as you get through phase 2 that can be discussed, and I think there's potentially some options that are going to be discussed after this. But really focused on the difference in the phase 1 min and the phase 1 max, and that's the discussion on the grant funding application to get us kind of to that phase 1 max. Construction cost estimate, just a little bit of background. I believe you guys have seen this map before from a previous study. The point to kind of pay attention to here is just where we have the delineated east and west. The west infrastructure study focused on west of that line. So as we look at the cost laid out on in the next slide, all of those costs have to do with west of there, and then the Steiger Lake Lane east is essentially the cost from the previous study east of that point back into downtown. So from a project cost perspective, total project improvements, as you can see in either of the options as we have them laid out, is the 5.5 million, which includes the 1.2 million in Steiger Lake Lane East dollars and the 4.3 million in the total public infrastructure improvements for the site. The two different phases, kind of as we have it laid out here, is moving forward with just the phase 1 minimum would include the phase 1 site improvements or infrastructure improvements to support the initial development, is that 800 and some odd thousand, including, and then also would have to include the Steiger Lake Lane East cost for a total of approximately $2 million. In the event of moving forward with the phase 1 max, or I think it says it's laid out in the staff report, the phase 1B, that would be a total of about 3.1 million, which would include the stormwater feature and extension past the central green area. And really the intention behind the LCDA grant is to apply for an amount of money that helps to cover the difference in those costs. And with that, I'll open up to any questions for Will or I think potentially Dana is going to finish up, so I don't know exactly how you want to handle that.
I think we could probably do questions first
All
on
right.
the project.
Thank you. Council?
Eric, question on the sewer. A few years ago, when Alphabet Junction was built, which is right outside the development where you've got here, the city paid to have the sewer run up from south of Arboretum Boulevard up to north of where Alphabet Junction is. And the whole idea was to provide sewer for Alphabet Junction, but also to provide the source for the sewer system going into the 13 acres. Am I misunderstanding that, or what's going on there?
Sure, Mayor, if it's okay, I'll take that one.
Yep, come on up.
Sorry.
Or do you have a mic back
I've
there?
got a mic.
Okay.
So back when the Alphabet Junction project was envisioned, we looked at the possibility of doing just that, of extending the city sewer system up to and through that site. But it was determined at that time, in order to do that full upgrade, we were gonna have to reconstruct a good portion of County Road 11. So we decided to not do that full extension as part of the Alphabet Junction project. Instead, we just did some upgrades to their system to be able to use the existing infrastructure that was in place. Because we really should be contemplating that sewer extension in conjunction with a road upgrade. And that road upgrade work, particularly as it relates to the intersection and the 13.5 acres, is being discussed as part of the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan, and then as part of this work that's happening with the 13.5 acres. So what was referenced about the sanitary sewer being able to really, we could accommodate it either to the east or to the west, but from a phasing perspective, it makes more sense to extend it from the east to serve these initial improvements. As the development were to continue, when we started to look at phase 2, we may take a look at extending sewer also up from County Road 11 to minimize the sewer depth, because the sewer is getting pretty deep through the center of the site. So that analysis would continue from a technical perspective as this project moves forward.
Would that potentially add cost or save cost?
When we had compared the two, it was cost neutral, so we would do whatever made the most sense from a cost and phasing perspective. If Marty had been coming to me saying, we want to do the west side first, instead of, this first building down, well, then we'd be talking about looking at extending the sewer from 11, because that would likely be more cost effective than dragging it from all the way over on Steiger Lake Lane.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have a question. The layout is different than what we had seen originally. Is this just for infrastructure, or are we changing everything?
Get back to,
Yeah.
ultimately, the two do tie together. Sorry, my mask down, sorry. They do tie together. So the layout is a little bit different than what you saw previously. And the reason for that is, well, there's a few different reasons, but one was that we really tied the feasibility of, how do you engineer this plan in an economical way, while to serve it from a grading perspective, that it became kind of cost prohibitive to do exactly what was on the previous plan. So I think this plan has a number of the same principles. It's not exactly the same.
Are these buildings set up to have underground parking?
A number of them are, yes. That would be correct. So we're trying to take advantage of the way that the site exists today in as many aspects as we can. And so the way the street works is it is generally at the higher point of the site, and if we're able to access underground below on either side, whether it be towards the park or internal to the site, we're looking to take advantage of that.
So some do, some don't?
So, for instance, the townhomes do not. They're all set up to. They would have garages. They're individual garages. It's not an underground parking necessarily. But all of I would say the multifamily portions of the project have parking that would be enclosed.
And flex? Is this flex?
The plan here provides an opportunity for flexibility. So some of these spaces could provide some retail opportunities, some could provide some office opportunities. The plan, as you see, is intended to provide as much flexibility as possible.
Okay, I can see Dana and Marty both
Do you want it?
Yeah.
I'll let Marty take it.
Mayor, members of the council, for a little added point of clarification, so you actually probably saw in one of the slides further down from here, that area that, it's hard for me to see the numbers, I think it's building 7, 8, and 9, that phase 3 area. We're actually showing that as kind of grayed out that, well, this is a potential configuration for that phase 3. We don't want to get too much of a focused mindset on phase 3 needing to look and be exactly as we're showing it on this layout. I think the intention would be that we're relatively confident in phase 1 and phase 2 because we've got some willing partners at the table who are interested in doing the market rate apartment in phase 1 and then a senior complex with the townhomes as part of phase 2. Phase 3, I think the intention would be that we want to be open to proposals. We want to be open to what the market is offering. We want to be open to different creative configurations in that phase 3 as to how that how that is and what that is, whether that's residential, commercial, a mix of the two, or what have you. To the question about underground parking, I think the answer would be that the market rate apartments would have underground parking. Most likely the senior building would have underground parking. If any of these buildings in phase 3 were residential buildings, that would be part of that proposal, and I think the market dictates a lot of times underground parking in those areas. But I don't want us to get too focused on the phase 3 area and that specific layout of buildings and configuration of buildings, because that's really going to be up in the air for different creative proposals. Right.
Okay.
Dana?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Black, members of the council. Just to add on a little bit to what Marty's saying, and back to Councilmember Black's question about flexibility. The stakeholders or the partners that we're working with today are committed to delivering council's adopted vision on that site with the use of flex space. So we've talked about that transitional space. So they're building to the standard on the first 2 floors that will allow that transitional live workspace to occur. So we've discussed that the demand in the market today might be all for residential, but as the need evolves, that space would be able to be converted to retail. That being said, there is an intent for a portion of that space on that first floor to start out as a retail commercial project or space as part of this project.
Even on phase 1?
Even on phase 1.
And that's all rental though, right?
So the phase 1 is market rate rental. And then as we work with our other partners on the senior housing, that would also be rental. But on the north side of the perimeter of that, the townhomes are owner occupied, but single level villa. So we felt like you all had lots of discussions on the concept and the vision and what you're trying to accomplish here. And one of the goals of this project was to talk about how do we minimize our risk, right? Our financial investment, but yet spur or serve as a catalyst for future development and balance that public public investment. And so we felt like, as Will stated, for economical reasons, we just couldn't achieve what we originally thought with the undergrounding and the large 2+ acre central green. But as you can see here, we've just shifted things, preserved the concept to the best of our ability, but created still a smaller but central green space and a really neat feature that would still serve as that stormwater management piece, but also a placemaking piece, which makes this a perfect candidate for eligible costs for the LCDA grant, which we'll get into in a minute. Thanks.
All right, so Building 5 does in fact, will be set up so it could be converted to first floor retail.
That is correct, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Presentation doesn't say that, though.
Yeah, it didn't say that. I thought I saw it said all residential.
So the conversations, Mayor, council members, that we've had with our partner is that they are absolutely intending to have a portion of that start out as retail because they believe, or some sort of space, whether it's restaurant or event space or I'm going to throw yoga studio, whatever it might be. that they feel like that there's some demand there, and they've been talking to their partners that would lease that space from them, that they feel like they could start. Now, it might not be all. I think what we've talked about at the council level with our partners in the past have been, I think what we heard from you is you'd rather have the residential space filled than empty storefronts on your second main street. And so that was the whole purpose of that transitional space, but we do feel that there is some demand to have some sort of commercial retail office presence initially as part of this project.
How many floors in Building 5, please?
4.
Got it. Council, more questions?
Which building is the senior?
The building just to the north of the central green, proposed building 4 on your screen.
Is the whole building senior? Or
Yes.
is there retail there too?
That the partner that we're working with currently intends to have retail or that transitional space. So it may start out because they feel that the demand is there, but for their community and the tenants that they're trying to attract, they would want to have some sort of presence of retail, service, office in that building as well.
How many floors? 4?
That one is also 4. 4? 3? 4? 4.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Super Council, additional questions?
So just so I'm clear that phase 1, we've got phase 1 and phase 2. Total cost was in the $5 million range. That also included Steiger Lake Lane, but so buildings, what are they, 7 and 8? That's not calculated in any of these cost numbers.
So the cost outlined is really what would be required from an infrastructure perspective. So the phase 1 and 2 costs, that would cover everything at that point. You know, it doesn't have building pad, you know, it's going to generally grade the site, but as development occurs, those developers would be responsible for doing the final grade for what their project will entail. Because at this point in time, we don't know exactly how everything will look, so we're trying to create, you know, some flexibility and put it in a way that the market can respond to and you all can respond to with different proposals. But yeah, you're welcome.
Got it, thanks. Council, additional comments, questions? Go ahead.
Phase 1, let's see. Looking at my notes here, I wrote down as fast as I could here. Okay, the Boyer property is the first building here, that includes property that we currently don't own as part of this 13 acres, is that true?
Can I take that?
Councilmember Vogt, Mayor, members of the council, yes, the proposed building 5 is shown, and you can see a dotted line kind of in the middle on your screen. In the middle of that is showing that proposed building 5 does bleed over into property that we don't own. And so the partner that we're working with has been in conversations with the property owners for that parcel. They are aware, that property owner is aware that council will be discussing this tonight, and they are working on an agreement, towards an agreement.
Okay, a couple other questions. Alphabet Junction, when they built their facility and had their plan that was given to the city, the plat, the property in the north part of their plot was planned for a building, a retail building of some sort.
Okay.
Not a parking lot, which means if they still go forward with it, we're shutting that building off of Steiger Lake Lane. So I'm just wondering if there has been any communication with Alphabet Junction, because do you really want to close that off and create a busy, create the inability to get on Steiger Lake Lane?
I think if I'm understanding you correctly, the connection onto Steiger Lake Lane, Well, the way the grades are on that site, there is a significant amount of grade there. And so from a feasibility of making that driveway connection, I think that would become very challenging no matter how you ended up developing this site. What we've tried to do is still maintain an opportunity for an access between the Alphabet Junction site and this site here, which, right now, you see a drive connecting over in that direction. I think there can be some flexibility on how that happens internal to the site. It's just, we don't know exactly how different projects will be proposed, but as we learn more and those do come to the table, we can work through that, and I'm confident there are solutions there.
That's it.
Okay, well, before we get down that way, right?
Most likely, yes. I think we're anticipating we'll start in the southeast and work our way on the north side of Steiger Lake Lane is likely how the development will occur.
Okay, thank you.
Council, anything else? Okay, Marty, anything to add?
I don't have anything additional to add. I think Manager Hardy has some information about the LCDA grant portion of this.
All right, thank you. Dana, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Also included in your packet, an action that we'll be requesting that council take this evening is to adopt the resolution that's included in your packets for supporting our application to the Metropolitan Council for the LCDA funds. Just a brief history. Last year, we went through and we spent a lot of time talking about the LCDA grant process. As we know, it's very competitive. It actually takes, the application process itself is very thorough, takes a lot of time to complete. Staff have been working on that to apply for that again this year. So last year we were not successful. We asked for $2 million and we essentially got the feedback that from the council when we were not successful, or from not the Met Council but the committee that makes those recommendations on who gets funded and who doesn't, that our project was just really too large and they didn't feel that the city could get done, weren't farther enough along in the process to complete what was needed to be completed within the time frame you had to expend the funds. And it's 36 months that you have to expend those funds. And so with that in mind, and with council's commitment to moving forward on really studying what the phasing could look like, we've now had an opportunity to refine that, come up with a different strategy. The strategy that we're proposing tonight and what you're seeing in the resolution would authorize us and support the city for moving forward with a grant application, essentially to plug what you saw proposed here tonight, the difference between phase 1 minimum and phase 1 maximum. And so we've said up to $1.2 million because that's what the gap is between the approximate $821,000 and $1.1 million or $1.2 million to do phase 1 minimum to phase 1 maximum. So as a reminder, phase 1 minimum, the minimum investment that we need to make as a city for any development to occur on that site. And what we were looking at is proposed building 5 in the southeast corner of that parcel. Phase 1 maximum, so the grant ask, that gap, would be to construct the central green and the stormwater features. That would be really a place-making feature. We would also include funding that would help kind of preparing the site a little bit further north on the grading, so assisting with that grading to make development more attractive, future development more attractive for those developers as well. And then we would extend up Steiger Lake all the way, instead of just ending basically at the proposed building 5, extend it into the site to serve as a catalyst for proposed building 4 and hopefully have development occur there sooner than otherwise would happen. So that, as we know that from the numbers presented in the study, that gap is $1.2 million. We feel like based on the feedback that we've gotten last year, that we want to come in just under $1 million, but we're still noodling our strategy. So that's why the resolution says up to $1.2 million. We still would like to reach out and work with the watershed district. We've not sat down and talked to them specifically on this plan yet. There may be an opportunity for them to partner with us and do more educational features and related to the stormwater management. So we'd like to flesh out what that would look like as well. The LCDA grant application is actually due this week on the 31st. Staff have been working diligently to get that done. And so the resolution of support would be the last piece requested, or the piece that we need from council.
All right, thank you, Dana. Council, questions, comments? Can I get a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, you have something?
Question. I forgot, when do we hear back from them once we submit the?
So, Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council, I'm really digging into the cobwebs of the file cabinet up there. I believe last year we knew by November. So there were a couple of rounds of interviews, and we knew before, it was before December, but I think November was about the time frame when we found out that we were not being funded last year.
Okay, do we have a plan B if we get refused?
So Mayor, members of the council, we're not, until our partner is ready to move forward with a project, we're not proposing anything specific. We've been continuing to work with them, but they haven't submitted an application, so to speak, to begin. So we heard from council earlier that your concern was to minimize the risk to our taxpayers in terms of what we invest. And so based on that direction, that's why we phased this and presented the information. Your minimum investment when that proposal comes to you for the project to occur is that $821,000. So you could decide at that time, hey, even though we didn't get grant funded, we really think that this is going to spur development, and we want the value, the tax base, and the value that it's going to create, and we really want there to be development, and we want to try to prod that along. You could say we're okay funding the 1.2. So you haven't made that decision yet.
All right, this is just whether or not we submit the application. All right, so council, any further discussions? If not, can I get a motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we direct city staff to apply for an LCDA grant for up to $1.2 million for the 13.5 acre phasing process.
Thank you. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Council, any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item, roundtable. Judy, you have one item?
Yes. I just wanted to have a conversation about the resignation of John Brownlee last week. We became quite surprised to all this, and I have to say, I was pretty upset, and I had a bunch of notes, and I don't know home, so I just want you to...
You want to go home and get them?
I just want you to know that, as far as, Mayor, your campaign, however you run your campaign, I have no problems with it. That's your business, that's how you do it. When it involves you as mayor, speaking as mayor, for your campaign, then I have a little issue. And and I think that, from what I can gather from John Brownlee's resignation was that was his comments were the decisions were made based on your comments as mayor. And I'm just hoping that we can come to an agreement, because in January I thought we had that when you spoke about things that were your personal opinions, that you would state that they were your opinions, and you have entitled for your opinions, and it's causing a lot of conflict. We're supposed to be representing all the residents of Victoria, and I know that you're going after a certain position, and it's, I just need to know that when you say these things, you're saying them as you and not as mayor.
Well, this isn't a roundtable item, because roundtable items are for giving direction to staff to do stuff. So, I mean, this sounds more like you're giving a report in your opinion, but.
Well, I didn't know where to put it, to be honest.
No, that's fine. That's more of a report, and that's fine. You know, I think it's silly for anybody to say that I can't say that I'm the mayor because I am the mayor. So, I mean, it's just that.
You can't say you're the mayor. I'm saying when you do your personal opinions as mayor, you're speaking as the city. You're speaking as council. When you speak as mayor, you're supposed to be speaking for all of us.
Well, I think this is just silly. I am the mayor. I am going to be able to speak and give my opinion. Let's not forget that a lot of the things I'm talking about, I'm the only one on this council that was actually at these events.
And why didn't you bring it to council then?
Because I didn't want to bring this into council. This has been forced upon me based on all of the nasty emails that were sent. I didn't even know about them, and that's what prompted this. The emails that were sent, what I assume to be to every council member, I'm going to have a statement tonight to deal with that, so I don't want to get into it now. I'll deal with it in my report. But Councilmember Gregory did share with me the emails. They weren't sent to me, but I believe they were sent to every other council member. And I had no idea that Mr. Brownlee was going to do that. So I have not talked about the campaign, right? But this has now been forced upon me by other people's comments. So I think people understand that when I go out and I speak, and I am the mayor of Victoria, I have every right to speak about that. I've also made it clear that when they're talking about city business in the sense of taking action as a city council or speaking for the city as a whole, I always say, well, I'm one voice on the council. And as such, even if I'm running for a different office, I still have the ability to say I have that voice. And just because of the fact I'm running for office doesn't mean that I can't say I'm the mayor and in my opinion I have a position X, Y, or Z. So I'm not going to debate it. I've tried to avoid bringing it in here. I've never brought it up, but it's now been forced upon me by the actions of others.
Well, yeah, because now they're contacting us, and we.
Right.
We're going, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to
So
say.
that's fine. I'll have a statement tonight, and so I appreciate your concern, but I've made it clear when I talk to people that I'm speaking for myself as a member of the council, not the council as an entire body.
This is what was written in paper.
You know what? I can't control what somebody else writes.
Well, you wrote it. When you wrote as mayor, I did it, and I'm going, and then this last one that you just did, you said as mayor, and you signed it as mayor and candidate. So.
And I'm both. So I have that title. I can, what do you want me to do?
So I'll just write to the newspaper and just voice our own opinion as council member.
Sure. People do that. I mean, you can write.
Fair. I think
What's the difference?
we've got a political campaign coming up for Victoria, and as a candidate, we're going to have opinions, and those opinions may differ from other members of the council. So we're not speaking as a voice for the council. We're speaking individuals with our particular opinion, offering residents an opportunity to pick, to select candidates based on opinions that they may agree with. So we're not all going to agree on everything.
Right.
And we're going to have opinions on
Well, I
subjects.
understand we're going to have opinions, but we need to say that it's my personal opinion.
Well, I think, you know, whether you say that or not, I think that goes about.
I think it's
stating
implied.
it. I think it is implied.
No, it's no.
That, I mean, we have, you know, we're for this program, or for that, or against that one. And we have different opinions on budgets and everything, so.
I don't know. You know, it was just, it was exciting to get those kinds of emails, and as mayor, I think you're the voice of the council, and there's a little bit more responsibility to making sure that they're aware that these are your opinions.
Well, I think people know instinctively I'm speaking for myself, but, okay, I mean, we can agree to disagree. The reports, Bob?
Mayor, I don't have a report, thank you.
Dana?
Mayor, members of the council, 2 fun things for you this evening. I wanted to share, we did receive 2 awards. I think you probably saw this in correspondence that I've sent you, but we received 2 really cool looking awards that we're pretty proud of. These are the Northern Lights Awards for communications, and we got first place for our website, and we got second place for our refreshed and reformatted newsletter, The Spirit, that goes out. So kudos to our team, particularly Marty and Gwen for their work on this, and also Holly at the Rec Center for her work on the website. So just wanted to share and show off our awards. So,
Kudos to the staff. Woo! Thank you, Dana. Anything else?
Nothing else.
Deb, any report? Judy, anything else to add?
No report.
Mr. Vogt?
No report.
All right, I do have a statement based on what's happened, so I'm going to read this into the record. One of the things I promised the citizens of Victoria when I ran for mayor was transparency. I've always tried to deliver on that promise for you and for our city. But before I go further, I want to read you a short statement about some of the racial attacks you may have seen in media or online or via email. I do not talk about my personal life often, but I feel I must speak out as I'm being falsely accused of racism. What you may not know about me is I was previously married to a Korean national who later became a U.S. citizen, and that we have 2 sons together. I served in the military intelligence for 16 years, where I worked alongside people from every race, creed, and culture. We worked shoulder to shoulder to protect the freedoms that are enjoyed by all Americans, no matter their skin color. I've continued to work side by side throughout my entire professional career, working with people from across the globe. I fought for and will continue to fight for our constitutional rights, including the freedom of speech that some individuals have recently used to call me racist. Those who are lobbying racial attacks against me clearly do not know my family or my history. I also want to address the controversial equity issue that is causing division in our school district. Equity, in my opinion, is nothing more than a cover for the progressive left agenda. This progressive agenda creates division or destruction. What you're witnessing with the burning of our cities, the destruction of our statutes, revision of our history, and eradicating our police is an indirect result of this progressive agenda. I support equality for all students. Our children's schools need to focus on academics and life skills rather than progressive agenda items like equity. The problem is not our teachers. It is the D112 administration and the school board itself. They're the ones who set the policy and decide how money is spent, not teachers. They're the ones driving the equity agenda, not the teachers. So why are they going after me? This progressive left group wants control of our schools. They're using the same approach that communists use to try to obtain control of countries. They are. Throughout the course of history, communists fight against freedom. In every case, they do so.
This is ridiculous.
You can leave.
I will leave.
So they do so by dividing the people, by calling names and creating chaos. To achieve their objective, they must silence common sense and must silence dissent. The people in Carver County who are name-calling aren't coming after me because they truly believe I'm racist. They don't even know me. They're coming after myself and others because they know by speaking the truth we're in their way. The truth is the enemy and must be silenced. I would love nothing more than to ignore these people, but unfortunately they are affecting our community and they won't go away. I fought in the military for the right to call us anything they want. I also fought for my own right to speak the truth and expose them for who they are. There are 2 main groups who are creating all this chaos in our country, in our county, and they're somewhat related to each other. One is indivisible, the other is roar. Many of their members belong to both, so the lines between them become blurred. Many of their members also sit on the Equity Advisory Council at our D112 schools, giving these progressive fringe groups a seat at the table in our schools and the ability to influence policy at D112. This chapter of Indivisible in our area is run by Tracy Leggett, Donzel Leggett's wife. Donzel ran for the legislative seat against Greg Bowe in 2018, and he sits on the Equity Advisory Board. You see how this works? While members of Indivisible are marching in the streets, the husband of one of the leaders of the group is helping to make equity policy for our kids and our grandkids. I saw this firsthand, and I was the only one on the council to see that when I went to the GARE training that was recommended by the EAC, and I was accused of bringing politics into the school, but yet the person that ran against Greg Bowe is a leader in the EAC and was involved in the school district even before I got involved. The other members of ROAR and Indivisible are busy calling businesses and property owners and asking for my political signs to be taken down because evidently they can't eat a sandwich at an establishment if my sign's outside. This is the absolute epitome of intolerance. But it gets better. They wrote letters to the employers of D112 parents claiming that these people are also racist and asked for them to be fired. Why? Because these parents had the audacity to speak at school board meetings with concerns that affected their children and their grandchildren. They did the same to me. They've written to members of this city council with false accusations of racism. This is what they do. You can find them all over my Facebook page. They are easily identifiable. They even throw the racist terminology at my supporters, going so far as to dox them, not because they are racist, but because they dare believe differently. These agitators are a fairly small group of activists with very loud voices, but in this new world where playing the race card is effective, where it gets people fired and it silences others, Americans must learn to stand up and fight back against these bullying tactics. And they have called my employer and tried to get me fired. I don't know who it was, but I did get the reports. This is got to end. If you don't believe what I'm talking about, what I'm going to do is, in closing, is I want to read you a letter that I received from a classroom employee who has experienced firsthand the equity agenda in our schools. This is the same equity agenda that I've been sounding the alarm on since my letter to the editor in January of this year when I experienced it in the GARE training that I attended, which was hosted by the school board and run by the League of Minnesota Cities. I've sanitized this letter because of the individual who sent it to me without it being signed, with no return address, but there was information in it that I believe the school district could use to identify them. And so I've sanitized this, but I have not changed the material thrust or any points she made. Dear Mr. Funk, I recently overheard a conversation by a local lake and a group of residents. I realized they were talking about you. I did some research and I support you 100%. I was born and raised in a nearby city. My kids went through K through 12 there, and I worked at school for many years. I can tell you that I'm not the only classroom employee fleeing my previous school district and its grand liberal equity experiment. Children do not get consequences for their disruptive behavior. They can yell and make a mess in the lunchroom, and adults can't do anything about it. If a child is sent to the office, the new norm is to play games, talk, and get special privileges. So why would kids want to have good manners and proper social skills? They have given all power to the children and parents. The teachers and staff are afraid. Look into why and how many employees have left my old school district. Groupthink and equity are just the beginning. I've also renewed and encouraged living in a working, I've also been renewed and encouraged living and working in a new school district. We teach kids to enjoy the holidays, share their traditions, teaching about all different nationalities, not race and color. I've been in the classroom in my old school district and had our time disrupted by a teacher leading her class down the hall, teaching them to carry signs and yell to express their desire to change lunch menus. I could go on, but you get my point. When Obama was running, there were campaign posters in the teacher's lounge. When he won, the day was spent in front of TVs instead of having class. When Hillary lost, you would think there was a great funeral happening. Teachers moped around and openly expressed their disgust to the kids. I'm praying for your success. I cannot give you my name as I am afraid of the cancel culture happening now. We are teaching children to see color and nurturing reverse discrimination. Our flag is a symbol where we are one nation under God, not different races. Any teacher that loves kids loves them all the same. Red, yellow, black, white, they are all equipped to do great things, and we adults need to stay focused on loving to go to school and not complicate the curriculum. My favorite part of teaching in my new school district is being able to say the pledge again with the kids. It's a beautiful thing. Good luck. And finally, I've had a teacher that's approached me that actually came from the D112 school district, and we've met with some of the leaders of the residents that are opposed to the equity agenda. And that teacher told us the exact same thing is in Pioneer Ridge Middle School, according to their opinion. And they said, this is no different, and this is what equity is producing. She said, look at the number of staff turnover. She said there was more than 24 people, staff, that have left that school because of what's going on there. So with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I had no intention of bringing this into this council, but given the fact of what's happened with the John Brown Lee's resignation and these nasty emails that are being sent, and the fact that the council responded, I felt I had a duty and I thought I had the right to respond. And with that, I won't talk about it anymore in council meetings, but I wasn't going to remain silent and be silenced by this kind of behavior. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.